Flirty, do you have a type? Do you? I mean, who doesn't? I know I do. And, well, okay, so what does having a type even mean? Is it the way someone looks? Maybe it's their career or the way they act? Well, in this episode of Flirtations, we're breaking down this concept of type, getting out of our comfort zones and dating outside our type. And on the show to have this discussion with us is Allie Jackson, a dating coach, creator of the Instagram page at Finding Mr. Height, and co-host of the Finding Mr. Height podcast. And together we'll share what having a type truly means, how you can date outside your type without sacrificing standards or physical attraction, and ways to manage anxiety in the dating process. So, if you're ready to discover dating outside your type as your new dating strategy, this episode is for you. Let's go, Flirties.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, Flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, Flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties, the topic on the show today is dating outside your type. We're going to be breaking down what that means. What is type? Your type. Choosing partners, breaking patterns perhaps, dealing with anxiety and rejection in the dating process, and then giving you some hope and inspiration to round out this conversation. And on the show for this conversation, Allie Jackson, welcome.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on the Flirtations Flirtcast. And please, first things first, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about yourself and your work with the Flirties.
Absolutely. So I'm Allie. I live in New York City. I'm a dating and relationships coach here. And I've been doing that for a little over 4 years, really just helping people feel better about their dating lives. Like, I think that's my overall message. Yeah. It's not, here's how to get a boyfriend. Here's how to get a partner. Like, I want you to feel good about your dating life. I want you to love your dating life and the rest of your life, because that doesn't stop when you're dating.
Yeah.
And so that's my overall message, is really just helping people do that. And great, let's find love on the way, but let's like that process, because it's hard.
So important. Yeah, it really is. Single and dating right out there alongside the Flirties. And it truly is like, you have to, if dating becomes this kind of like laborious process, this thing that you're just like, it's not feeling good. It's not feeling great. That's going to add a lot of strain to it, make it super challenging.
Totally. And I think when you're feeling that way, you're not going to show up on your dates in a great way either. And now we've got this vicious cycle where we're feeling shitty. Can I curse?
Oh, yes. I will. Explicit rating coming. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So we're feeling shitty about our dating life, and therefore we're showing up in that way on dates. And then we have a bad experience. And now it's just this negative feedback loop that keeps getting worse and worse. And I know I was single for the last 4 years. I'm in a very new relationship, but I felt like I was like banging my head against the wall. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, it's hard. It makes it hard to show up authentically. Like, that's the word that gets thrown around a lot, but it's so true. And it's like, it's hard to show up in a way that is just true to yourself, and you're developing those connections that are genuine in the sense that they're aligned with just helping you feel fulfilled and making connections that are, that you just like actually want to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, great open to the show. I think this is going to be so good as we start talking about. All right. So I think first question I want to ask you is just breaking down, what does type mean as we talk about dating outside your type? From your perspective, what is kind of this air quotes here type? What is that anyway?
I think a lot of people immediately go to physical when they hear the word type. They're like, oh, I always date guys with mustaches, or, I always date, athletes, or, like those types of things. And that's part of it. But I think what actually is even more important is the pattern of your type of person that you're dating, the way that they show up in the world, maybe the lifestyle that they lead, the approach they have to relationships, communication style, all of that. I think that's more important as it relates to thinking about what our types are and what our patterns are.
Yeah. I agree. And I'm glad you opened it up in this way right here at the beginning, because I have oftentimes always pretty much equated type with some type of physical aspect of about someone, their appearance, or it could be their style. It's something that you're visually drawn to or visually attracted to. But type is so much more than just what someone looks like. Yeah, you want to be attracted to them, of course, but a lot more to it.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the physical piece does come in a lot more, of course, when people are dating online and, dating apps. And I think it can be harder to tell if somebody is your non-physical type there because you're getting just such a brief snapshot of them. But you do know right away if they're your regular physical type.
True. Yeah.
And I think it can be really hard to break out of those patterns. I see this with clients all the time when we're swiping together. It's one of the exercises that I do with my clients is they share their phone screen with me on a call and we swipe together.
Yep.
And I just find the judgment they're making over people that they would consider their typical type is so different from those that they don't.
I want to hear a little bit more, about this swipe process. What is maybe beliefs start to change? Some of those patterns start to dissolve a little bit. I would imagine there's like some internal challenges that may come up, some resistance to that.
1,000%. So it starts with asking a lot of why questions.
Yeah.
So you'll see somebody and, they're swiping through and they'll come across a person and they'll be like, oh, immediate no. I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. Before we're not allowed to swipe yes or no before we talk about it. So why? And then they'll say, oh, well, just throwing out a random example. He said he doesn't like cats and I have a cat. I'm like, okay, that's a fair deal breaker if you want to have that deal breaker.
Yeah.
But do you remember 4 or 5 guys ago, another guy said he doesn't like cats and you didn't mention it then?
Oh.
And that would be because usually that person was more in line with their physical type typically. And so they're making more allowances now.
Yeah.
And, I see it go the other way too, where they're pickier on people that they don't consider in their physical type. They're making more allowances for people that they do. And what happens is we're not making consistent decisions.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, guilty as charged, where it's like, you can really start to, right, if you are, you're on the apps, you're swiping, and you're immediately just drawn to the picture, that physical, what someone looks like. And then you start to overlook some things about maybe you're not even looking at the profile, or you start to be like, okay, well, you know what, I said that was a non-negotiable, but whatever, let's give that one a match kind of thing. Or it's like, oh, you know what, they didn't have a profile at all.
But they're hot.
Swipe match. Let's cross our fingers. Yeah, you're really making those concessions and letting go, or not even thinking about what your standards are, what you're looking for. Yeah.
Right. And I see this too when people are filtering on dating apps. So like one of the most common filters that I see people using that I don't think is a helpful one is education level.
Okay.
So people will filter and say, I need somebody that has a college education. And I'll say, okay, why? Let's dig into why. And usually it ends up coming down to something related to their curiosity for knowledge. They want somebody who is curious. They want somebody who is smart. Let's say they want somebody who's intellectually minded.
Okay.
And my response to that is usually, could it be that somebody who didn't go to college meets those needs?
100%.
And I know I went to college with plenty of people that don't meet those needs.
I went to college with a few of those people as well. Yes, I did.
Right. Like I know plenty of people with bachelor's degrees who don't give a shit about intellectual curiosity, right? So like we're not actually solving for what we think we are when we're using that filter. But that's our normal type. We normally go out with people that have a certain education level in this example. And so breaking out of that can be really interesting and useful, but hard, to your point.
Yeah, it's definitely hard, especially as we're going to be talking about in this episode, some of those breaking patterns habits, so that kind of thing. And so I want to talk a little bit more about type two, like from your work. What are some other things that qualify or maybe factor into someone's type? We've got physical, education level, some other things that may fall into that category of type.
I think communication style and the way that they approach relationships falls in here. And I think that is probably the least common thing that people think about when they think about what their type is. Like nobody would typically say to me, oh, my type are guys who don't like to text between dates. Or, my type is, women who like to speak on the phone. Like they don't talk about that.
Right.
But when we look back at our patterns, we can see that the people that we're dating often are approaching relationships in the same way. And maybe that's worked for us, but chances are a lot of it hasn't.
Right. Yeah, if we're, I'm thinking about some of the like, because I'll see these, scrolling through social media or really any form of media, movie, TVs, blogs. It doesn't matter. It's like you sort of have your types, like the lumberjack is, like it's you then can paint this picture in your mind. You can visualize what the lumberjack looks like or the nerd, right? It's like
totally, and we get comfortable in that. Yeah. And we get comfortable in certain dynamics. And so it might feel like, I'll use myself as a personal example. I used to be really anxiously attached, and I still tend that way when stressed, but used to be pretty bad. And when I liked someone, that anxiety is through the roof, right? Like I'm activated. I'm thinking about them all the time. I have butterflies in my stomach. I'm, but I thought that was excitement, the spark, if you will.
Okay.
So my type was people who activated that.
I see. Okay.
And who felt very sparky and who could show up on a first date and razzle dazzle and make me feel all the butterflies, but not give me the security and consistency that was actually going to make me feel good.
This is really, really cool. Yeah. So your type being very much being equated with a feeling, an experience, or a way of connecting.
Absolutely. And then you feel comfortable in that, even if it's not serving you.
Yes.
And then you feel discomfort in something that could serve you. So when I started to work through that and I started to go on dates with people who didn't activate that, my initial thought is, well, I must not like them very much because I'm not nervous about my date with them.
Yeah.
And really that comfort was a good thing. And it just took me a long time to see that.
So good. And so we're going to get into this part of the discussion now too. And I wanted to quickly share this one more thing about type from my perspective too. It's like, I've had this experience, and maybe you have, where it's like you having a type for me has sometimes taken the guesswork out of dating, where it's like I have this type and then I can go ahead and usually based on some type of physical qualities or hobbies they have, the way they're initially presenting themselves and pictures on a bio. And now I can go ahead and assume all these other things about them. It's it really helps my own anxiety in the dating process, where now I can be like, oh, they must be like this, or they must do this, they must like this. And having my type kind of qualify or disqualify somebody before I even allow myself to get to know them, which in a way just simplifies the dating process, but not in a good way, not at all.
Right. So I was going to ask you, have you ever found any like cognitive dissonance with that, where you show up on a date having assumed all these things about a person, find out that that's not true, and now you're disappointed?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Talking about just, 100, the way you said it. Exactly.
I've used the metaphor before that it's like when you have a book that you really like a lot, and then you go see the movie, and the movie's nothing like what you pictured the book to be. Like the characters don't look the same. That girl doesn't sound like that. Like, and now you don't like the movie, even if it is an objectively fine movie, and all your friends liked the movie because they didn't make the assumptions you did based off the book.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I've definitely had that experience where it's, you're making all of these assumptions, and then you have that disconnect actually in real life, in person, and maybe you've hyped them up to be this person, and they're not quite that. Or maybe they surprise you and throw you through a curveball, perhaps in a good way, but now you're not ready for it, or I'm not ready for it because I expected them to be this person and show up in this way. Oh my gosh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And I want to ask now, okay, so good old question. I got this one several many times, and that is if you tend to be drawn to the same type of person, how can you start? And yeah, especially if the relationship doesn't work out or connection doesn't work out, you don't really have proof that your type is what is best for you necessarily, or you're always gravitating to the same type. How can you start to change and shift some of those patterns, beliefs, habits? Yeah.
I think two things. One is related to dating apps and the other one is not. So
Okay.
on dating apps, my recommendation when clients are feeling that way is to go broad at first and to maybe get rid of all your filters if you're using them. Really expand your definition of what could be a good match for you. That doesn't mean you don't get to have deal breakers, because you do, right? Like, and getting really clear about what those things are is important. After that, though, let's expand our definition, start some conversations, maybe go on some dates with people that we wouldn't have otherwise, because you can always narrow back down. Like, these are not irreversible decisions that we're making here. If you decide to go on a date with someone that is, quote, outside your type, and have a terrible time, you do not need to go out with them again. That's fine. And you don't need to, you can refilter. You can be like, you know what? I thought that removing that filter was going to be a good thing for me. Turns out it's not. I'm going to put it back on. That's fine.
A little bit of good old trial and error, perhaps. It's like that's going to be part of it for sure, especially if your filters, your parameters, your dating patterns are getting you the same results every single time, and those results aren't necessarily what you're looking for.
Yeah. And so I like to say, start turning maybes into yeses.
Oh, okay.
So when you're going through and you're like, oh, maybe this person, that's a yes, swipe right, or whatever the interface is, say yes, match. Because again, matching with someone doesn't mean you have to go out with them. If you match with someone and they start messaging you and you're like, ooh, no, never mind, you just don't go out with them. That's it.
So helpful, turning the maybes into yeses. This was part of my initial experience on the dating apps too. And I, sometimes I still fall back into this pattern where, when I was first, and this was many years ago, I'm going to say like 5 years ago, getting out of a long-term relationship, and then being single for a while, a couple of years, and then starting to date again and making a profile for the first time ever, and having so much fear about just like, oh my God, what if, all these questions running through my mind, hesitant and nervous to even make the match. Maybe, just turn that maybe into a yes, make the match. And then, you're not committing to a date. Yeah, I know.
You're not even committing to a conversation. If they message you an opener and say something super weird, you don't even have to reply.
Yeah.
There's no commitment. Now, I do recommend if you're using an app where like you have to be the first one to message. So let's say you're a woman who dates men and you're on Bumble.
Yeah.
Message those people. Like if you match with somebody, you had all the information that you had then. So continue the thread.
Yeah.
But you're not committing to going out with them. You're not committing to dating them. It's just it's going to be fun.
Yeah. You got to give yourself a connection, the chance.
1,000%.
Open it up a little bit. Yeah. All right. I've got a question now, and it's very much equating type with attraction. And this person, this flirty, has said, you know what? Like, I am just attracted to this type. It's always been that way. I don't feel like I can change it. Is this just who I am? How can I start to maybe break out of this? Yeah, very, rigid way of thinking about attraction as type.
Yeah. So this actually goes into my second recommendation for trying to date outside your type and expand, which is try to bring more in-person dating into your dating life. And that can be really hard. But something that I challenged myself to do last fall is I said, I want to go to 2 in-person events a month where I'm not going to know anybody. They don't have to be dating events. Yeah. I just want to go to 2 in-person events where I'm not really going to know that many people, maybe one person, I bring a friend. I'm going to expand my network. I'm going to maybe meet more people in person. The reason is because I think it is so much easier to be attracted to somebody outside your type when you meet them in person than when you see them on a dating app. Even if you go on a date in person, you've like you said, you've attached so much to them already from their dating app profile.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you're going into the date thinking already, well, this is a maybe that I turned into a yes.
Yeah.
And that can put us in a tough headspace to give ourselves a fair shot on the date.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. I like that. I like that goal. More in person, a very manageable, one or two, flirting it up a little bit.
Exactly. And it honestly became to the point where I was so excited about it that I started with 2 as my goal per month. And I was going to way more by the time I met my boyfriend in person at one such event. So it ended up working.
Yeah.
But it just made me feel so much better about dating because it made me realize how many people are out there that I could be meeting.
Yeah.
Not even people I'm necessarily romantically interested in, but just new, cool people to augment my life. And then eventually it did enhance my dating life.
Yeah. Could you share that meet cute moment?
Yeah.
With the flirties?
So I had this goal for myself and I was going to 2 events at first. I believe I started it in September of last year.
Okay.
And little by little, I started going to more and more because the other thing that happens when you start going to these events is you meet people who go to these events and then they invite you to other ones. And it starts to snowball because okay, I met one of my close friends now. I met at an adult summer camp that I signed up for on a whim as one of my challenge items. Almost a year ago today, our friendiversary is coming up. And so then she is someone who likes to do that stuff too. And so we started going to stuff together. And April rolls around and I have a friend of a friend, kind of loose acquaintance who was throwing an event. And it wasn't a dating event, just a social mixer. She's trying to bring people together and said, you know what, I'm going to go to that. And the day came and I did not want to go. I'd been at another event. I'd had a couple drinks. I was tired. I'm like, you know what, though? I made this commitment and I told her I'm coming.
Yep.
I'm going to go. And I met my boyfriend at that event and he was there with another acquaintance that I didn't know was going to be there. And so I saw him, walked up to him. He was standing in a big group and that's how I met. We ended up closing down the bar. We talked until like 4 a.m.
So amazing. That's really, really cool. And 2 like really big takeaways I got from that is that you were going to these events and it wasn't just about talking to the person that you were attracted to or just talking to the person that you're like, ooh, they could be a potential partner for me. Ooh, that's someone I could go on a date with. It was making those connections with everybody. Like if someone was interesting, if you're just involving yourself in conversation, making connections, and then you found friends who then, oh wait, you got invited to this thing. And then this is I think how it can happen too.
Absolutely. And to that end, on our whole topic, my boyfriend is not my usual type at all. And he wouldn't have fallen in my filters on a dating app.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with him. I think he's so hot.
Yeah.
But like, he's not my usual type. And when I started talking to him, I did not know that he was a romantic prospect. Like it was not in my mind of, ooh, that guy's cute. I'm going to start talking to him at all.
So good, because certainly, you're going to meet people that would be disqualified from your filters on a dating app, or maybe they're not on the dating apps at all. And so you're able to meet just more people. And so I'm curious now, what were some, you described him as maybe not necessarily your type right away. What had been your type before and how is he different?
So I'm 6 feet tall.
Okay.
And on dating apps, I was filtering to usually 6'2". Sometimes I would drop it down to 6'1". Really because I was finding that when I was showing up on dating app dates with men who said they were 6 feet, they were like 2 inches shorter than me. And I have dated guys who were shorter than me in the past. I don't prefer it. But the real issue is that they would be upset.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I was chewed out by guys who said I lied about my height. And I'm like, I am not the one who's lying here, but okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not 6'2". I hate to break it to you. I'm not. So I was filtering that way because I was having that experience. And my boyfriend claims he's 6'1". He's more like 6.5, probably.
Okay.
But he probably had 6'1" on his dating apps. And he wouldn't have fallen into my 6'2". So like that would have disqualified him already, even though he was not lying. But the people who do make it, ruin it for everyone.
Yeah.
And the other piece of it is that I really tended to gravitate toward, I'll say, like a cleaner cut guy. Like I
Okay.
gravitated toward the preppy guys, the
Yes.
finance guys, like
Fresh
it was
shirt, collars. Yeah. Really quick. Maybe
Yeah.
clean shaven.
clean
Yeah.
shaven.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that was what I was comfortable with. It's what I grew up around. It's what more so what I went to college with. My boyfriend has a beard, full sleeves,
Wow.
nose ring,
Yeah.
earrings.
Ah,
He paints his nails.
totally not the clean cut look.
No. And like he's way cooler than me. But like
He does sound really cool.
he's really fucking cool. But like I wouldn't have seen him as somebody that I could date because he was just in such a different, I would think, category from me. And again, not he's in a worse category at all.
Right.
Just different than I was comfortable with. And I'm more attracted to him than I've ever been to anyone in my life.
Yeah.
But I never would have found that out.
So good. A real life example right here on Flirtations of dating outside your type. Oh my gosh, meeting in real life. So I want to ask you now some of those how people the flirties listening can start to distinguish like how we've talked about non-negotiables, some deal breakers coming into play here. I'm thinking standards, right? You having what you're looking for, how you like to date, the qualities of a partner you're looking for, and starting to detach and distinguish that a little bit from this, type.
Yeah, I think so I call this blueprinting work.
Okay.
And so I work through with my clients, what is your blueprint for what you want your future partner to be? And we get to break that down into deal breakers. Those are things that we are not negotiating on. It is impossible for you to date somebody that doesn't meet these things. A handful of those max, ideally 3.
Okay.
Then we've got must-haves, which are very, very, very important, but still a little malleable.
Okay.
So I'll give some examples. So the biggest thing I want people to ask as they go is why. So as they're figuring out which category this thing is going to be in, ask yourself why you want that thing.
Yeah.
So something that's a deal breaker for me is that a guy that I date has to like cats. And that is because you probably have seen him in the background.
I did. I saw your black cat. Yeah. Looking around.
So I have an orange one too who hides when I'm on video calls. Because orange cat energy. But I have 2 cats. They are 8 years old. I am very attached to them. They're not going anywhere.
Yes.
And so you don't have to love cats, but I have them and that's not changing.
Yep.
For me, that's a deal breaker. Something that for me is a must have. I live in New York City, like I mentioned. I love it here. I would like to live here for the rest of my life. That is really important to me.
Okay.
It could change.
Okay.
Like that is something that I could be willing to negotiate on with the right circumstances, but I would really prefer not to. So those are like the more important things. Then we get into nice to haves and what I call frosting, which are like silly little things. But as we start to ask ourselves why, that's how you can start to categorize what these things are. Because when I ask myself, why do I want somebody who likes cats or who can cohabitate with cats? Well, it's because I have 2 of them that live with me.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
When I ask myself, why do I want somebody who would want to live in New York for the rest of their lives? Okay, that's because I really love the city. I think it's magic. Most of my friends are here. Also, I could see myself building a life somewhere else. Like that's not crazy to think about. People do that all the time. So maybe not a deal breaker for me, maybe a must have.
Okay.
And so on and so forth down the list. But asking yourself why, the height question is a good one too. Why do I want to date someone who's my height or taller? Well, society tells me that I need to be feminine and dainty and small. And, I've had bad experiences with men not making me feel that way. But could it be that somebody shorter than me makes me feel that way? Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that's not a deal breaker for me, even if it is something that I generally gravitate towards.
So good. I love that. I love that I think that was really, really helpful, certainly for me, and it's going to be for the flirties too, to really distinguish what your must-haves are, the sort of like, wish list sort of things, the icing, but also certainly dating true to your deal breakers too, and allowing them to be consistent. Or do you think they could shift and change a little bit?
I actually think it's really important to give yourself grace to change.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people get really hung up on things that used to be deal breakers or used to be nice to haves that they've now realized are deal breakers.
Yeah.
But they're scared to make that shift, probably because it's not comfortable, because they've always been operating under their previous framework and they're scared to make a new one.
Yeah, definitely. That ties in perfectly to this next question I want to ask, and it's around some strategies to begin to break that cycle, begin to break those patterns if you are going towards that same type, or the person that is, you find like you're more or less attracting the same quote unquote type of person, guy, girl, he, she, them, and it's your relationships aren't working out or they're not evolving into long-term partnerships like you would like. It's what you're looking for. So yeah, we're breaking the patterns here.
Yeah. So I think the first step is really identifying what those patterns are.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what they are, it's going to be impossible to break them because you're not going to be able to be mindful about it. And sometimes we can't see our own patterns. So I also often recommend when I work with people, I have a little questionnaire that we send to some people who know them really well to ask them, what kind of people do I date? What kind of patterns have you noticed in my dating life?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, I also do this, by the way, when I'm helping people write their profile, because the same way that we often can't see our own patterns, we also often can't see the stuff that's super cool about us.
So true. Yes. Yeah.
That other people would be like, oh my God, Allie, like you love, I don't know, pizza. Why didn't you mention that you have a pizza oven at home and make pizza all the time? And like, oh my God, you're totally right. That is super cool. I should say that. And so both of those things, I think that looking to the people who know us really well to help us identify and figure out those patterns is a great first step, in addition to our own self-reflection.
Yeah.
And then to start to actively fight it. And at first, it's going to feel really uncomfortable.
Yes. I'm squirming in my seat as we speak. Yes.
It's going to feel hard to, look at somebody and come across somebody's profile and think like, okay, this is an objectively attractive person that I can recognize is attractive to me. Because I really want to make sure that people know that all of this breaking your type thing, this doesn't mean you should date someone you're not attracted to.
Oh my, yes. Very good point. Yeah.
Because I think people internalize that and they hear the attraction can grow as, oh, you just should date someone you don't like. Which, no, absolutely not. Don't do that.
No. I fully agree with you there. Yeah. To date outside your type does not mean you're dating. Yeah. There's like zero chemistry, zero attraction. It's someone that it's important. It is. And you get to have
1,000%.
that. Yeah.
You do. Yeah. I think it's just about expanding your mind to what that can look like.
Yeah.
And allowing it to grow a little bit. And so I think the first step is going to be actively doing that and saying, okay, I recognize that this person is an objectively attractive person to me.
Yep.
They're just not my usual type of the person that I would walk into a room and gravitate towards.
Yep.
But if my friends were dating them, I'd be like, oh, they're so cute.
Right. Oh, yes.
And if we're recognizing that this person has some qualities that we find attractive and they're meeting some of our other wishes, try it out. Go on a date. See what happens.
So good. I love this strategy of using your friends, family. It could even be coworkers, right? Sending people this questionnaire and having them respond, hopefully objectively, like, yeah, who am I attracted to? What kind of people do I date? And because they're going to be able to take. They're not as attached and a part of your dating life certainly as you are, so they can come at it from a little bit of a different perspective and offer you. Yeah, just a different point of view, which can be super, super helpful. Maybe they recognize patterns that you can't quite see or can't quite admit to, and they're able to see it. And something that's I've really started to incorporate a lot of this strategy into my own dating life, where it's like something I've done. It's like if I'm only attracted to somebody, that can't be the only reason that I want to go on a date with them. It's like I've also got to look for some other things there. And so some of my deal breakers are cat person as well. My cat Sugar is here, eavesdropping on the conversation.
Love it.
Right now, just one, just a cat dad to one, but certainly she's a huge part of my life, not going anywhere. So you don't have to be as in love with her as I am, but I want you, you're walking into my apartment to like, hey, how's Sugar doing? Or be curious or be inquisitive, something like
Yeah.
that. And then I'm really looking for someone that has that growth mindset, somebody that has some type of drive, determination, motivation, not necessarily rooted in achievement and productivity, the type of person that always feels like they have to be busy doing something, but just has that curiosity to learn, to discover. It could be something about themselves, to pursue a passion, a hobby, if they've always wanted to start a business or a creative endeavor. Just I'm looking for someone that is just in that mindset and in that space of curiosity for them. You
Yeah.
know?
So how are you
Yeah.
determining that? Like, how are you exploring whether this person that you're deciding to go out with meets
Mm.
that?
Through conversation, through questions. It could be initially asking about, hobbies or interests, drives, things we have in common. And so maybe we start to connect in that way. It could be someone that is pursuing education or going back to school, has a dream for themselves. So I'm trying to connect and flirt on that spiritual level a little bit, and that
Yeah.
spiritual dimension, as I describe it, based on dreams, visions. Just are we sort of expanded in our thinking and in our mindset and just looking to always be just growing? And so their own self-talk, how they're talking about themselves, it's yeah, that's going to be part of it that helps me distinguish it, even if they have, anxiety or depression or something like that present. Just how are they able to navigate that through self-awareness, through curiosity, self-love, just knowing that I'm gonna be inspired by that and connect with them in that way. So those are a couple of the deal breakers I'm working with. And yeah, detaching from only dating based on how someone looks, because Lord knows that ain't got me nowhere.
I hear that. Very
Lord have
relatable.
mercy, nowhere. All right, so I think I've got. Yeah, I'm glancing at the questions here, and this one is similar to the one we just talked about, but I want to ask. And this flirty says, "I'm always attracted to guys that in the end aren't into me. How can I change
Hmm.
that?"
So, gosh, I always have questions when people have questions, but
Yeah, it's I know, same.
because my first question is, what does this person mean by not into them?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how is that manifesting? Is it that they're attracted to people that aren't romantically interested in them at all?
mm,
Is it that they're not pursuing a relationship with them? So maybe they're
yeah,
physically attracted to them, but not, looking for that relationship. Like, what is that
mm-hmm,
aspect of it? But regardless, I think my advice is similar to what we've been saying is
yeah,
you've identified this pattern. What else do they share? There's
mm,
got to be other things that they share besides they don't like you.
right,
Is it that they're emotionally unavailable? Is it that they're all
mm,
really busy with work or something and not prioritizing dating right now? What is that thing
yeah,
that they all share?
yeah,
And then can you proactively try to talk to people that don't have that trait
mm,
and expand your definition of who you want to talk to? Because you're going to have to do that first
right,
in order to be able to find those people that are going to reciprocate.
yeah. Mm. So good. Yeah, because it's like how, yeah, when you say guys that aren't into me, it's, yeah, sort of how, yeah, like what does that mean? And what does that look like, kind
Yeah.
of thing? I'm curious, is it, perhaps coming down to strategy and maybe rushing, is that part of it? Is there, but yeah, like you said, getting into the nitty gritty of patterns that may be presenting themselves. If this is something that is continuously happening, it's the cool part is we get to have a lot of control over our dating lives. And this is where we get to
Yeah.
make really positive and impactful changes so that we can find whoever.
Completely. Because the other thing that came up for me when I was hearing that question is
Oh,
that I know that I used to be attracted to disinterest because
Oh
it
my God.
activated anxiety in me
Oh,
and made
yes.
me think I liked them more.
Mm, yes. Speaking my
You
language.
know?
Yes. Same.
Like, it's like the question mark of, oh my gosh, do they like me? What's going on?
Yeah.
Those butterflies I was talking about earlier, I
Yeah.
mistook that for me really liking them. When
Yeah.
in reality, it was just that they didn't really like me. And that uncertainty was triggering something for me.
Mm, yeah. And but one of my type for a long time has been like the broken guy
Uh-huh.
because I've very much been wanting to be I've wanted to be the fixer. Like, mama, I can fix him, right? Just let me patch him right up. I can
Yeah.
heal him, fix all his woes. And if I can become a huge part of his life, someone that he relies on very quickly for a source of just emotional support, just being there for him, just to pick up the pieces, always being that shoulder to lean on, very much equating that with interest, with liking me, but it was really this way of chasing validation that and love. I see like I see it for what it is now. And so yeah, that has been my type in the past. Yeah. Let me fix
Yeah.
them.
Well,
Let me fix them.
on knowing that now, I'm so glad that one of your deal breakers that you've shifted to is somebody that has that growth mindset,
Oh my
because it
gosh,
sounds
yes.
like you're now looking for somebody who wants to be able to do that for themselves as well.
Yes, yes. Got to. I'd love to be a source of support, motivation, but I cannot be your fixer. I cannot
No.
do it. That is not why we're dating. And I had to recognize that pattern and that habit for what it is and get really self-aware about why I was dating in that way. That was some of my internal work to do, but also
Yeah.
realizing that as a strategy did not yield good results.
Yeah.
The broken man. My goodness. Okay, so chatting a little bit now because we've been talking about changing some patterns. There's going to be some internal resistance, some
Mhm.
discomfort, some anxiety that comes up, and so offering some strategies now just around managing change and adapting to dating in a new way. Not easy.
It's not. And I love this
Oh my lord.
question
Yeah.
because I think that that is the part that goes most overlooked when
Mm.
people are trying to do this work. They're like, oh, well, I'll just start dating different people. Well, you're also going to have to navigate the feelings that come up
Yes. Yes.
when you are dating those people.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point, doing that internal work of often the why behind some of it and what is being activated in you from those other people, and just continuing to remind yourself of where that led. And
Mm.
know we're good,
Yeah.
like we were saying,
Yeah.
right? I had to constantly remind myself, in conjunction with my therapist, shout out to her. Um, I had to constantly remind myself that these people that I was dating who were activating that anxiety in me
Yeah.
ultimately did not lead to the relationship that I want.
Yeah.
And even though it was really hard to push through that and to honestly end things when I felt that,
Mm.
that was the hardest part, actually. The hardest part for me was not dating the people that made me feel more secure. The hardest part for me was not dating the ones who didn't.
Mm. I get that. Yeah.
And because also, when you're doing that, if you don't stop dating the people that you shouldn't be dating while starting to date the ones you should,
Yeah.
you're never going to like the ones you should, because you're still
Right.
doing the old thing.
Mhm.
And now you've got this comparison. You're like, well, this person,
Mm.
they make me feel all sorts of ways. And it's because that's your comfortable pattern that hasn't led anywhere in the past. And
Yeah.
it's going to make
Yeah.
you unable to see the potentially amazing qualities about the people where your patterns are breaking.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So helpful. And I want to spend another moment here with that question. And this one came in, I got it a couple times, and that is you find yourself starting to make some positive changes, but then falling back into old patterns and ways. Is this something you see
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're yeah. Okay.
Firstly, give yourself some grace. I
Yeah.
think my first advice to anybody struggling is give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
this isn't something that is going to change overnight. This isn't something that's going to feel good overnight. Like
Yeah.
dating new types of people and trying to break patterns is supposed to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If it weren't uncomfortable, you wouldn't have a pattern. If it's not uncomfortable, you're probably not on the right pattern. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably haven't found your pattern if it's not uncomfortable. So give yourself some grace for that. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to give yourself that grace, that self-love, that compassion, that patience, because making changes it's really, really freaking hard. Especially, we've talked a lot about, I think, anxious attachment in the dating process, and something that's been part of my dating story. I think a lot of the flirties listening too. And when your nervous system is conditioned to experience romantic connection in a specific way, and you're just that, even though it's uncomfortable, becomes what's comfortable for you because that's your normal. And then you start to change how you actually feel when you're dating, and couple that with a new strategy, your deal breakers, right? Starting to date outside your type. It could be a big upheaval, not just in your dating life and your dating process, but for how you feel and experience dating. And so this just, it takes time to begin to experience connection in a new way too. It's something I've had to, oh my gosh, just give myself tons and tons of patience. And I've fallen back into old habits and ways, being the fixer once more. When I start to get uncomfortable or anxious, if I sense someone is starting to pull away, or, the communication just suddenly drops off, even for a moment, it's like, oh, all right, hold up. Let me show up in this way, because this is what I know. This has just been my habit. Yeah.
I think grace with accountability
yes
is what I try to say, because there is a point at, if we're constantly just, I'm giving myself grace, I'm being patient with myself, that could go on forever with no actual change.
Yes.
So grace with accountability.
I love that addition. So important. It's very much that like self-awareness isn't always enough. Sometimes we can be a little too self-aware, but pairing that with accountability so that you can get yourself back on track. And certainly reach out if you're working with a coach, a therapist, right? You've got your friends, the people you reach out to for your dating survey, right? Let them know what's up too. Like you don't have to go through this alone, and you shouldn't.
Absolutely.
No, reach out to us. Yeah. Leave a comment. Say, we're here.
Exactly.
All right. I want to, wow, this has been so good. These always go so fast. Just, I think, one or two more questions, and just starting to, I think we've worked through some of the anxiety piece and just mindset around that, and want to perhaps end here on a moment of hope, inspiration, right? As we're trying something new, dating outside our type, it's going to be a little bit scary, a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe some rejection comes into play where you may be the one being like, you know what? I turned my maybe into a yes. And now that yes is becoming a no, perhaps. This is all going to be part of it. So some words of wisdom here, inspiration.
Well, I think I really just tried to remind myself that I love my life regardless of whether I have a partner, and I really want a partner. So I don't think it's helpful to say like, oh, you should be enough on your own. You don't need a partner.
Yes.
Because I really wanted one, and I really wanted to build something long-term, and that's okay. Like it's okay to really, really want that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so important to continue to nurture the rest of your life so that partner augments your life rather than completes it or becomes it.
Yes. I love that.
And so to me, that gave me a lot of hope that especially with, like I was saying, all those in-person events where I was meeting all these new people and doing all this new cool stuff, I was building a really cool life, even while I was still single. That was cooler than it was 6 months ago when I was also single, all on my own.
Yeah. I love it. So good that you can, love your life, be fulfilled in your life and in who you are, who you're becoming, growing into yourself, being curious, but then also still very much know that you want a partner. Yeah, I love that, because we often, it's, there's, you see so much content and just a lot out there about, right? It's you have to be whole before you date, or something in about healing. Insert whatever here, and it's like, well, I relate a lot to what you said. It's like I'm very much building a life that I love, and I still want to share that with somebody.
1,000%. And I
Yeah.
love myself plenty. Thanks.
Yeah.
Like, whenever I see that, they're like, you have to love yourself before someone else can love you. I'm like, yeah, cool. All right. Like that.
Thanks.
You're saying that since I'm single, that means I don't love myself. I don't.
Right.
What?
Makes no sense to me. I have the same reaction too. And that's why I was so glad to hear about your meet cute moment in the show today, where it's you yeah, it was in real life, and it very much it through making connections, and happened in a way where you were just putting yourself out there looking to meet new people. And I oftentimes try and impart this message to the flirties, where it's like, if you're dating is a thing you do, not the thing you do.
Totally
where it's
agree.
like, because this is another pattern, not really related to type, that I've had to break, where it's like I've just put, I'm on the apps and I'm swiping. So I'll set this arbitrary rule where I have to get 5 matches, 10 matches before I log off, or, just putting so much pressure on the experience because I just want it. But having it still be this thing, something I do, but not the thing, like the center of my social life, and
Yes.
right, what I spend all my free time doing. And oh my God.
Yeah. And, I always think about too, the fact that I met my boyfriend at this event.
Yeah.
He is somebody who also likes to do things.
Ooh, yes.
And like that was a huge deal breaker. It was on my deal breaker list. Somebody who wants to go do stuff and try new things, and whatever that means, whether that's traveling, whether that's trying new stuff in our city, whether that's, just, I don't know, trying a new sport one day randomly.
Yeah.
Going and doing stuff and trying stuff. And I met somebody at an event that he decided to go to because he likes to try new stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. What an amazing way to start to, really conclude this conversation. I only have one more question, and that is to share where the flirties can find you, where you live on the internet, how they could work with you.
Yeah. So my handles are Finding Mr. Height everywhere, TikTok, Instagram, etc. And I talk about my coaching offerings on my website at findingmrheight.com. I do free 15-minute intros so we can see if we vibe before anybody commits to anything. And I hope to hear from everyone.
So good. I will make sure everything is linked in the show notes. Allie Jackson, thank you for being a part of the show today.
Thank you for having me. This was such a fun conversation.
Yay! I loved it. Flirties, what do you think? That's a wrap on this episode of Flirtations. Thank you so much to Allie Jackson for being on the show today and having the conversation with us all about dating outside your type. Thank you so much to you for listening, tuning in, for streaming wherever you may be in the world, whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. And finally, if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating, a review, subscribing to the show, letting me know what you think. I'm very open to feedback. Yes, I am. And I would love to hear what you have to say. And last thing is, I'll see you very, very soon in the next episode. We're over on Flirtstagram, Flirt Talk, where I live on the internet. And don't forget to flirt.